I'll hit the button in 3, 2, 1.
Alright guys, this is Micro Machines for the Sega Genesis. This game was released on a ton of consoles back in the day. It was released on NES, SNES, Genesis, PC, probably some other lesser known consoles I'm overlooking at the moment. But in my opinion, this is the cleanest version of the game. It doesn't have additional bonus levels for no reason that make it really hard to do splits and speedruns. It also has the best as far as loading times go, and sound effects, and not a whole lot of lag. So this is the one that I prefer to run, but there's a lot of other ones on there. We're going to get started here. We're going to pick our character, and as soon as I select our character here, that's when we'll start time. So I think that we're doing Spider. He's the fastest guy. All these other guys are a little bit slower down the Walter. So we'll start time here in 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, we have a qualifying race at first. The cool thing about these Micro Machines is all the different maps and all the different vehicles we're going to be driving. So at first here we're going to be driving powerboats in a bathtub. You know, just like everyone does in their own bathtub. There we go. Wow. So we were just good enough to qualify, apparently. Even though we, crushed the competition. And then what you do is you pick the 3 people you're going to be racing against. So the general strategy of this game is to pick the 3 fastest people here at the beginning while the tracks are easy, and save all your slow opponents for the end of the run, which is what we're going to do here. Our first race is going to be here at the Breakfast Bens. That is these Jeeps on top of a breakfast table. So you can see the outlined cereal pieces there. The cool thing about this game is that you can really take a lot of liberties with the track. Now, you can't take infinite liberties with them. You can't shortcut over everything, but knowing where the things that you can get away with are, and where the kind of invisible checkpoints lie, are basically what allow you to get some really broken things done in this game. So these early tracks here that are basically just circular are pretty easy to kind of just chop off the corners as we go. But if I had gone on the inside of that waffle, per se, then when I would try to re-enter the track, it would put a small little explosion and then scale me back to where I went off track, which would be a long, long time ago. So messing up one of these little shortcuts here can really ruin a run. Alright. That was pretty quick. These next cars are probably the most challenging cars to drive in the game, but they give us a really easy track to do it with at first. Actually, the last level of the game uses these cars. What makes them so tricky is that they have a lot of oversteer, so that when I make my turn, you'll see the back end kind of come around and fishtail. But additionally, they travel so fast that you can't really see the obstacles until they're like really right on top of you. So a lot of track memorization is actually needed for a lot of the more complicated tracks in these cars. In the slower cars, not so much. You have time to react to a lot of the things there, but I can't imagine that the last few levels of this game can be sight read. And you can see the environment's a little bit different now. We're jumping over, school supplies and whatnot. This is happening at a desk somewhere, but not the breakfast table we saw in track 1. And you'll see a whole lot of different environments and cars in this game. So there's a big variety between the things, and we'll even see some that have weapons and such. But we will always be the yellow car, and we'll always be the one that's kind of taking liberties with the track boundaries. And that kind of puts us way ahead. The other category that I run in this game is called Walter %, which is when you control Walter, the slowest driver, where you generally have to do a lot more of the cheating and cutting of the corners just to hang with the faster guys. But when we're Spider, it's really, really easy. Right. These are the Warriors. They are, I guess, classic kind of cars of some kind with these spikes in the front. And you can see the environment here is kind of like a garage. The things that we have to watch out for there, well, first, if you hit somebody really hard, you'll explode like that in these cars. Second, you might not have noticed there, I drove into a little bit of a bubble, and that's allegedly super glue. We got super glue, we have oil, and then we have these spots where the track will narrow it a couple of times, where they'll put like a screw or a pencil or something down and make the track a little bit narrower than expected, like that. So the ideal strategy on a track like this is to basically hang on the line as long as possible, because when you're driving on the line, you can't really get punished for the glue, but you can get punished by the track narrowing. So if you just know where the track narrows, but you happen to stay on the white line, you won't get punished for it. So we got track narrowing here, we gotta watch these small bubbles. The small bubble hitboxes are almost as large as the big bubble hitboxes, shockingly. You can drive on the line and kind of what appears to be driving over the glue and not get punished, but then drive next to the small bubble and for some reason get stuck in it. So, I don't know if they use the same size hitbox for that or what, but it could be kind of punishing at times. Alright, those are warriors. And we're going to get our first bonus stage here. Well, every 3 races we eliminate somebody, so Jethro finished last, and he been around since the beginning, so we got rid of him. And we'll welcome Emilio to the challenge here. Alright, so these Rough Trucks time trials happen after every 3 wins, which in the NES and SNES version happens every 3 wins throughout the entirety of the game. Meaning if you win every single race, you're going to keep getting these Rough Truck bonuses. Which is counterintuitive to speedrunning, because then you'd want to like intentionally finish second so that you don't have to do this level. But at least in the Genesis version, they just cap it at 3. They just say, alright, you're going to get 3 of these things, and then once that's it, you're not going to get any more of these bonus levels for a chance to get a 1-up. So that makes this game, I think, a lot more favorable as a speedrun game, just because of that. Alright. Yeah, and Force, I definitely like to play a lot of top-down racing-style games. American Gladiators is basically the only one that I don't do that way, but all these other ones they all fit the same mold. And if someone has a plethora of other NES or SNES or Genesis-style top-down racing games that aren't on my my SRC page yet, point them my direction. I'll grind them. They're my favorites. Alright, so now we got these dune buggies here in the sandbox. I'm not quite sure if sandboxes are still a popular child's like environment. I imagine they still are in like preschools and stuff, because then they can like, you know, constantly sanitize the sand and replace it and whatnot. But I remember when I was a kid, there were sandboxes at like literally every playground or gym set in someone's backyard, and I can't remember the last time I thought about a sandbox existing. But if they're still out there or not, I have no idea. But yeah, so these cars are incredibly quick, and they can get off balance really quick by going over those little bumps there. So on the more difficult versions of these tracks, they'll put those bumps in some really bad spots, like right before a turn and a hazard if you kind of go straight through it, so you gotta be careful. We will see each of these vehicles 3 times through the game. So these are all kind of primitive versions of the difficulty that those can scale to. We do have our second breakfast one, though. These cars are incredibly easy, and we'll actually be doing all of our breakfast things by about track 10 or 11. So we're going to take some liberties here and dodge these. I never learned if that was oatmeal or juice or what that was there, but it slows them down, so I try to avoid it. So we'll cut across there. We'll watch out for these guys as well. Then you get to see all the healthy stuff that we're putting in our body here. You can see these are not Cheerios, but they're in fact Toppings with no natural ingredients. So, these guys like Spider and his friends are eating great. Alright, so we'll go around that one. Not too bad of a fishtail there. Alright, watch out for the waffle. Going back in with the milk. You can hear them battling there. What ends up happening in this game a lot is that since all of the drivers are slightly different skill levels, if at the start something happens where one of the faster cars is behind one of the slower cars, they don't have like an AI strong enough to like actually attempt passes and whatnot. They all just take the same exact racing line and then just bump into each other. So all those like thuds you hear in the background are like a faster car running into a slower car getting angry that it's in the way. That all that carnage back there. God forbid he pulls alongside to pass him. He's just going to keep hitting him in the back over and over again. My guess is that Emilio, who's a little bit slower than the other two, is either getting hit by Bonnie or Cherry. But I don't remember which color we made each of those guys. Because Jethro was... I think Jethro was red, so Emilio would be red now. There we go, that worked. Not the fastest way through there, but quick nonetheless. Didn't hit the juice. Alright. Now we got the Formula 1 cars on the pool table. These cars are just as fast, if not faster, than the sports cars we did on the school desk a little bit ago. But just like Formula 1 cars, compared to, American-made sports cars, these things have incredible handling. It's like flying a plane. It's very razor-sharp when you go around turns. It just does exactly what you expect it to do. There are a couple quick things that we have to react to up here, but nowhere close to the obstacles that we had to deal with on the desk. We'll just turn off that card to get back onto the course here. Also, I feel bad for this kid when his dad gets home and he sees what he did to his pool table. Don't think that's going to go over so well, but what do I know? Ooh, we missed it. Alright, it's fine. Nothing too bad. Could have been worse. But yeah, that's the little explosion thing I was talking about with the respawn, where if we cut too much of the track, it blows us up like that. Just like if you were falling off or something like that here, if we fell onto the carpet. Try to do that without lifting. Just had to give these guys a chance, you know. Alright, one more lap of this. And then I'll have to replace the felt before Dad gets home. Or Mom. Whoever's working. Whoever enjoys the pool table. We're not here to judge. I remember whatever classmate had the pool table, that was the place we always went to after school. Not only does he have so many pool balls on here, he has so many of the same ones, because they cut and paste the same image for a lot of the same obstacles. So you'll notice that the 9-ball, the yellow striped one, is almost always the one in the way of the track that you have to go through. We'll see that a little bit later on the tank track, too, that they kind of use the exact same obstacle over and over again. It's like, well, why does he have 37 King of Diamonds in his deck of cards? It doesn't make any sense. Alright, we got Smooth Joel here. He's the cool kid with the tore up t-shirt that says Yuck on it. Alright, we got another Rough Trucks. So we'll go through this bonus track, hopefully without incident. And we gotta get through this little pathway there. Don't sink. Alright, good. If we line this up, we can go full throttle through here. There we go. Nicely done. And we got a 1-up that we hopefully don't need. Alright. Another Warriors track in the garage. For some reason, the acceleration on these cars is so brutal to the human-controlled player compared to the AI. Alright, so we dodged the glue, and they all didn't. We'll dodge this glue, we'll go through the track narrowing. We got a glue, then a narrow, then a glue. And then we can cut across here. And then we're going to take another little liberty of the shortcut here. So we have the second oil slick, that's kind of our visual cue, that we can kind of cut across that much. And then this last bubble of glue is another visual cue that hopefully, next time we don't screw up, or we can go through there full speed ahead. And we kind of, you can see the hitbox abuse there. Like, we looked like we went right through the glue. We did not. It was very simple to avoid that. It's not a trick of any kind, we just drove next to it. But those small bubbles, you're not getting away with that. They're punishing you every time. Alright, so watch the second oil slick again. And then watch this bubble here. Our cue to cut across. Ah, so close. The Warriors are an interesting car, because they have a different engine as far as physics and their detonation quality goes. When we saw those first two cars crash and blow up on each other on the first Warriors track we did. On the NES and the SNES versions, their tolerance for exploding like that is much, much lower. Ah, I got too greedy. It gets much, much lower, so that if you kind of just like bump into somebody else at the front of your car, you guys both just blow up and respawn. But it takes a long time. Oh, Rez, the RC cars in Mario Odyssey are my favorite. I spent way too much time with that, and I also really like the rehashed SNES Mario Kart music. Alright, so we got boats in the bathtub, but this time it's for real, against real drivers instead of the qualifying guys. This is so much easier playing as Spider like we are today. Playing this as Walter is really, really hard, because the bubbles, as you can see as I bump into them here, intentionally, are a hard barrier for us, which means that we can't cut the course or do anything like that. So when you're driving as Walter and you're already slower than everyone, generally the advantage you gain is because you cut the course in spots that you're allowed to get away with. But on the boats here, you really can't do that. Like, there's nothing that allows you to take a shortcut of any kind. So if you kind of fall behind the cars for whatever reason, get bumped into out of the way, or get tripped up somewhere, you can't really make up any time, and you're already naturally slower than them. So being Spider on this is really, really easy, and being Walter on this is really, really punishing. This is generally a run killer, especially because it's early enough in the game where if I'm driving as Walter, I'm playing against really tough opponents, and I'm not going to be able to beat all of them. Because if I still have some of those really, really fast guys, I don't have a chance. Poor Walter, man. Actually, it's Dire Walter. Poor is the adjective they use to describe Dwayne, the second to worst driver. If you check out the manual for one of these, I can't remember which one it is, but all the characters have a very complicated backstory. Not necessarily complicated, but far more complicated than you'd expect from like a console game. And they say that Walter is not doing so hot outside of racing, and his parents are going through a tough time and a difficult divorce, and he's taking its toll on him, and that's why he's not driving so fast. And when I saw that, I thought that was pretty deep to put in an instruction booklet. To say that, no, if it needed to be said. There are different categories for different characters, but it's just this and Walter for now. I'm the only one in the Walter category. No one else has run it yet, but I would be delighted if someone else took any kind of any kind of affinity to this game and wanted to run this game as any character and make a bunch of categories. I would support them in whatever way possible, because I feel like this game has a lot of exploring to do. I mean, you guys have seen, 100 mistakes since this run has started, so there's definitely optimization out there, and probably research and tricks to be done on all the out-of-bounds things that we can get away with. And we get there, and we don't need to cut this turn so perfectly close because we're going to be turning left here in a second anyway. So if you take that turn wide or close, it doesn't really matter. It's how you exit that one. Otherwise, it's all going to be the same distance traveled. Alright. Tragic Walter is right, man. But I don't know the deal with Spider, man. He might just be, like, really, really old compared to these guys. The sunglasses, the leather jacket with the pop collar. I don't know if he's, like, really a kid. And these other guys are all kids. Alright, it's actually faster to go through the menu this way on these last 5. So we'll scroll to the left instead. Oh, good. Our last rough trucks. Alright. This one's a little bit complicated here. And of course, if you mess up and fall off and sink, they set you right back to the beginning. So it's better just take our time and get it right. A little bit of shrubbery to deal with. Alright. Get stuck on all the vegetation. Shout out to anyone in the Mid-Atlantic who's got long vegetation in their yard like me right now. Alright, let's try to not bonk on any rocks. Thread the needle. Oh, so close. Almost had it. There we go. Alright, no more rough trucks, no more extra lives that we don't need. Yeah, level can be really punishing, for sure, but at least it's not actually against anybody, and it's only for extra lives. It's not necessarily a run killer, as in, like, it's a game over, but it can be a run killer once you're, like, trying to go for the optimized speedrun record. Alright, so now we got these little helicopters here in this garden. This is another one of those tracks like the boats a second ago that you really can't abuse any kind of boundaries with. You're kind of stuck with whatever. All the boundaries are very hard. You can't go through them or anything. The leaves can be really punishing. They're not like the bubbles where they kind of push you back onto the track. You just kind of get stuck there. But luckily, we're Spider. We're faster than everybody, so we get ahead and they're no longer in our way. That's not so bad. You're going to see a couple weird obstacles within this environment in Stage 2 and Stage 3. There'll be some water sprinklers and like a fan and all that, but I've always wondered, like, who cuts their garden like this? Who has, like, a donut-shaped clearing where their kids can play with helicopter, drone, micro machines, and then otherwise it's completely surrounded by shrubs that you can't get to. So, yeah. Interesting layout plan, but who am I to judge? Alright, so now we got some... Our last of our breakfast races here. We have a couple places where we can cheat a little bit there. That spot where I just cut the corner there is actually not not encouraged to do an NES or SNES because the engines play a little bit differently. So when you go over the serial pieces like that on NES or SNES, you lose control of the car for a little bit longer than you do in Genesis there. And it's long enough that you actually won't be able to gain control before you fall off the edge of the table. So the strategy there is to slow down, or it's to go over the other side of the juice. So instead of slowing down in the juice, you still are able to approach the turn. It's just not the shortest distance all the way around, but it's just a safer run overall. Alright, so we gotta watch the orange, and then there's juice there. We'll join back in here. But yeah, you can see that we just go over the serial, and then we have direct control of the car again right away, no problem. Alright. Free thing inside the box of cereal. Wonder what that thing is. It's probably carbohydrates. Alright. We'll go around the juice over here. Thread it back on. Watch this. Spin across, cut across this corner. Oh, got too greedy. Gotta wait till we cross the finish line. That's okay. As you can see also there, even though we got penalized for that, none of the other cars were even within our sight. And that's because we've now eliminated some of the other faster drivers, so even the cars that are left were strictly faster than by a large chunk. We probably won't ever lap any cars, except for a couple races here near the end. Generally, on the tank tracks in the bedroom, you can lap people, because there's the ability to shoot your opponents. So if two of them kind of get into a war with each other and start shooting each other, they kind of get stuck and don't really travel for a very long period of time. So we can gain and lap people on that track, and we can also lap people on some of the last desktop tracks, where the obstacles things get really tricky and they'll get jammed up in them once in a while. So, but not on tracks like this that are pretty smooth and simple. Oh, sponsored by Toppies would be dope. I'm in. All right. We got Boats 2 here. This one's a little bit more wide open with straightaways, which kind of benefits the faster cars like Spider in here in his yellow boat. Still got a ducky to avoid, but we don't have any tubes to drive through. We got a bar of soap and some shampoo. I'm never quite sure what that, like, that bar that we just drove underneath was. I'm not quite sure what that actually is supposed to represent. That thing. I don't know what that is. If anyone has one of those in their bathtub and can direct us to an Amazon link to maybe explain what in the world it is that we just saw on the screen there, I'd love to know, but I've been curious about that for 20 years at this point. I've never seen, like, a soap rack or something that goes straight across the bathtub. It seems like that would be, not a good design. Alright, those little, bubble things there like that, those little bubble bridges almost, their hitboxes are strangely, emphasized a little bit more on the track edges, as you saw there. When I hit it there, and it pushed me back towards the center of the track. So it's actually not always the best idea to hit those on the sides like I am. I'm just trying to abuse the track boundaries as much as I actually can, which isn't much in a boat. Alright. And Chen is a very interesting character in this game because he has no happy animation. I don't know why. I don't know if they just forgot to do it. I don't know if they're just saying that Chen is just not that excited about things. Oh, we got tanks. This is pretty serious. Not the best start, but we'll be okay. We generally don't want to be in the line of fire, ever. But we want to take out other people who can be. So that way, I put red there so he'll be in the way of green and potentially can shoot green in a second. If you get shot while you're doing one of those obstacles, they put you back at the beginning of the obstacle. So ideally, we don't want to get shot while we're on the chessboard, or checkers board, or whatever these kids are actually playing. I haven't seen a black and white checkers board before, so I've always assumed it's chess, but there aren't any knights on the board, but maybe that's where they've progressed in the game. So. You be the judge. Are those pawns and bishops and rooks from the top down and 16-bit graphics as best they could? I don't know. Actually, it can't be checkers, right? Because they're using both the black and the white squares. It's got to be chess. Yeah, never mind. We solved the mystery. By we, I mean me. This wasn't the fastest tanks one, but it was certainly successful. This can be a track where if you battle with the second or third place tank for too long, the first place one just gets so far ahead that you'll never actually be able to gain on them. So luckily, we got through that without too much trouble. Alright. We got Formula 1 for the second time here. We have to go on the rail again here, but it's pretty much the same as before. The only difference is that when we transition off of the rail, we have to be a little bit careful because the card that sends us down is basically right after the turn. We just have to slow down a little bit there and make sure we don't miss it. A quick transition there before the lap ends. That is another 9-ball. Also, this is another friend's house, so you can tell by the blue pool table felt. Unless this is supposed to be the felt, the new felt that you bought to replace the first one that you covered in chalk. So, I'm not quite sure what the lore is on this, but they got the exact same floor pattern. So, maybe all these houses were built at the same time, and that's what the contractors put in there. Or maybe this is the same pool table as before. Who can say? Dodge the 9-ball. Take a few liberties here at the chicane out of this place. Try and dodge that blue one. Alright, good. I do think it's cool that they were able to, even in Genesis days, have designs like that, and then also a kind of a layer 2 that's scrolling at a different speed. I think that was Sonic the Hedgehog that kind of did that at first. And then obviously Mario World had something similar as well, but seeing it in a top-down racing game that was ported to a bunch of different systems, not always as easy. Right. Another sports cars race here. Oh yeah, they're gonna be super mad, but they're gonna have 2 pool tables for the next track, so it's fine. And they're gonna be red. That's how they punish their kid, is they buy a second pool table. And they refelt them both in the same color. Alright, you can just see kind of the difficulty, how it's scaled on this track here. Just how many things that you come up on that are kind of just like right on top of you really quick. As I said before, these tracks here seem like they'd be impossible to sight read. I'll never be able to, you know, relive that again, but just the lack of handling that the car has, additionally, how fast it's going and how, like, punishing the obstacles can be. Where the skinny rulers here coming across, etc. Those are things that you need to be really, really ready for. If we're going to cheat this one. I don't want to deal with that obstacle. The ink is also less punishing in this than it is in the other versions. The other versions, you can't even really turn for like 2 or 3 seconds. So while we try to avoid it, it's not nearly, you know, a crash waiting to happen like it is in some of the other variations of this game. I'm not quite sure if that means that this was kind of the intended version and they ported it to those other ones after the fact, but every single version of this game seems to have a strange shaped cartridge. Like the one that I'm playing on right now on Genesis is kind of like a cartridge that's rounded at the top. It's not shaped like a typical rectangular Sega cartridge, and it's obviously not one of the big square Electronic Arts looking cartridges. The NES game is in a like goldish silver. It's in some sort of metallic looking cartridge, depending on, you know, how it's held up over the years. But it's one of those not licensed by Nintendo cartridges as well. So it's unclear to me which one of these is actually the developer's intended version of the game. But I've imagined it to be this one because the music is better and everything about it overall plays a bit better. It even has one additional track, so It seems like they just kind of ran out of space and just didn't port over the last part of it. The shortcut a little bit there. And we'll cut this piece off the end. There we go. And we got a lap in there, too. We lapped poor old Chen. But Joel's been here the longest, so we're kicking him out. I'm gonna invite Mike to the party. But yeah, each of the characters has a happy face, a sad face, so that's when they finish second and third. And then they have like a celebratory animation for when they finish first, and an angry animation for when they finish fourth. And Chen is the only character in the game who's missing an animation, and he's missing the celebratory animation. And I don't know if that's just supposed to mean that Chen is stoic and doesn't have those kind of animations about himself, or if they just straight up forgot to put it in there. I don't know. I do know, however, that if you play the N64 version of this game, which is not the same game, it's not a port, it's kind of like a sequel to it, they use a lot of the same characters and have some pretty hilarious voice acting. Like Dwayne, who we're going to pick up in a second here, after 3 more races, definitely has like the skateboard stoner voice to him, which is like, dude, whenever you talk to him or click on him or hover over him at all. And some of the other characters definitely have some funny mannerisms about themselves as well. So it was cool to see them keep those guys together. That is not the case for the PlayStation version, I don't believe. That came out far later. But the N64 version is incredibly challenging, and they all have weapons and a whole bunch of new environments too. So, if you have the chance to check that one out, I highly encourage it, mostly because I'm not very good at it, and I'd love to see someone else speedrun it, and nobody has yet, so I'm not really excited to take that one upon myself. Right, this is our last sand buggy here, racetrack here, and you can see some of the bumps there that lead into the puddles can be really, really punishing, but luckily we know about them in advance. What can happen sometimes is if a car's right behind you and hits you, especially if you're Walter, onto one of those bumps, you kind of just go over them, you can't turn because you're in the air, and you go right into the drink, and that takes a little bit of a long time to come out of it. Alright, so we got our choppers here. And we're going to see one of our chopper obstacles I mentioned earlier. This one's going to be the fan. At least I think it's a fan. It's hard to tell. Look at this top-down view if it's a fan, but it seems like to blow the chopper, so you kind of have to turn the direction towards it so that you don't go flying into the shrubs. But it also kind of looks like a radio, and maybe that's supposed to mess with the signal. I don't know. Why would you have a fan in a garden? I'm not quite sure what the purpose of that is. But we do have one more hazard that we haven't seen yet that's up here, and that's the sprinkler, so we don't want to get hit by the water, so we'll avoid that. We'll save the water for the boat's levels. And we'll turn towards the fan again. Goof that up a little bit there, but not too bad. Great. Looking at my map for a second, figuring out where I was, and looked up and see that I was driving into a flower. Shout out to the person who made all of these maps on video game maps. I believe they use the NES version, so some of the tracks are a little bit wrong, but nothing too crazy. When I first started speedrunning this game, I was prepared to look at a bunch of backslashes and stars on GameFAQs, trying to draw a map that looked awful and unreadable. Not that those guys did anything wrong, they were doing the best they could with what they had at the time, but it's really nice to see that someone since then has been able to chop some ROM data and draw actual game-accurate maps with graphics that are readable on an external monitor, so thanks to whoever put those together. It's very, very friendly. But shout out to GameFAQs, too, because people who were doing that back in the day. I still got my Final Fantasy VIII GameFAQs .txt printout, 140 pages long in a binder over there somewhere. It was all we had in 2007. Alright, this is our last Warriors track. I like to think of the map of this track as like a person carrying like a tray or a book or something like that, like a huge book. And the only thing I remember about it, the reason why I remember it that way, is because the only place that the track narrows is in their lower back and on the bottom of their feet. So the reason why that's important, well, as I blow it right there, is that I can basically just drive on the line the entire time elsewise, because I'm not worried about the track narrowing except for those tiny spots there as I slide across the oil where it narrows anyway. But I can just kind of drive on the outside of this line without any consequence. I'm not worried about the track narrowing here. I can just know that I'm going to avoid the bubbles and stay hazard-free, hopefully. Dodge that bubble. Oh, we hit a fuse. This guy's got so many fuses in his garage. I think he's an electrician, but he's got so many other things that remind me he might be a carpenter, and then he's got motor oil and all this. It's, you know what? This guy just fixes everything. Or gal. We don't know. This might be Walter's mom's house, for all we know. Who can say? Alright, we'll watch out for the glue. Man, they are so messy. Who's cleaning that kitchen table? The garage I can get being messy. Although drops of glue are pretty terrible to step in. Alright, no more driving in the garage. I'm done with that mess. Alright. We're also done with Anne. Because we're going to replace her with Dwayne. We're running out of tracks here. So we drive every single one of these 8 cars 3 times, and we fill up this cool little... I don't know what this is. He's carrying all his micro machines around. But when it's all said and done... Yeah, we've had another bad tanks here. That's not so good. We're going to stay in 4th here on purpose. Oh, they shot each other. We got to get out of the way. Don't get shot. Don't get shot. Alright, cool. If you get... Oh, man. There we go. If you happen to get shot while you're climbing over those or over those books, they put you back at the beginning of all the books. So that's why I was really apprehensive as soon as I saw that those 2 guys had respawned right behind us. I thought that was going to be real bad news. But we made it. Oh, there's some foreshadowing later. We got some Legos that we're going to deal with in the 3rd iteration of the tanks. That'll be coming up soon. That is the hallmark obstacle of that track. All the tracks have a chessboard, so that's less impressive. But the books in this one and the Legos in the next one are a bit more of a big deal. Alright. We'll see if we can get a perfect chessboard navigation on lap 3. That was a little bit better than lap 1, but not great. Smooth through there. Hopefully we don't catch the lap anybody around this time. Then we'll have to worry about them shooting us going through the chessboard. Got across the pencils here. Enter all the way on the right. Oh my goodness. Pretty much what we were afraid of, but we were able to avoid any kind of consequence for that. Wanted to shoot him for the trolls, but that's okay. Shout out to this Arial number font here. Everything else has got this crazy Micro Machines Codemasters design there, except for those position numbers. They kind of just put them as placeholders and forgot about them, I guess. Alright, this track is the only track in this game that's not available in any of the other versions. All the other versions of this game used a different track here for track number 20, which is the same track that you'll do on essentially track 25. They just repeat it. However, because this is only available on the Genesis, our wonderful Video Game Maps website did not have a map for this one, so you're going to be doing this one blind. But that's okay, because hopefully you're doing it against lesser competition, and you can just kind of take over what you need to and win the race and move on with your life. There are a couple spots that are a little bit tricky, but nothing too punishing there. Just make sure that when you're going left to right, especially when you feel like you might be crossing over tables, that you're completely centered. And that when you're going down or up in directions like that, that you're in the lane that won't have the eraser on it. So, we'll try to do there. Then we'll center ourselves up here. Of course, it's a really punishing bottle of ink afterwards, but not as punishing as falling off. Oof, like that. But we're still ahead. We're good. Jump off some binders. Alright, I don't know how well my game audio is transitioning through there to you guys, or if that's a lot quieter than my voice, but you can definitely hear the differences between this track and some of the others and how much I'm lifting off the throttle, just to make sure that we're not, you know, overshooting any turns or falling off where we don't want to. Hit that ruler, which basically doomed us entirely there, but you guys hear that carnage? All those thuds of other cars bumping into each other? I'll have to go back and watch this VOD later and see what was happening in the standings there, but sounds like some people were unhappy with one another. Center up. Alright. One of the more difficult courses is done now. Alright. 4 more races to go. This is the last of our boats. This has got a couple of those pipes, which I also don't know what they're doing in someone's bathtub there. That was really unfortunate, but we'll be okay. So you can see the difference in the speed between the red boat and the blue boat there. How the red one just keeps gaining on it, and instead of driving around to pass them, they just keep running into the back of them, which is creating that sound that you see. That's also something different about this version from some of the other games, and actually a lot of racing games from back in this day. This is one of the few racing games from back in the day that actually creates all the cars and kind of simulates what they're doing at all times. In a lot of the other racing games I've played a lot of racing games, if you can't see a car on the screen, they kind of have an algorithm, and they're just like, okay, this car's going to be at this spot this time, and if you're stopped, they're going to come past you at this exact moment on this frame, or whatever. And that's not so in this game, because they're constantly worrying about battling with one another. You have the sound effects and the standings changing and whatnot. In the other games, they don't do that nearly as often. So it's kind of cool that in a game, you know, on a system that didn't have the most processing power in the world, they were still trying to figure out ways to make it a race and realistic. It's not like as soon as you drive away from these guys that they're perfectly sorted in the exact same distance from one another. No, it's based on where they would be based on the events that have happened, and kind of simulates them as they're happening. And we'll also deliver the sound effects of when they're running into each other or running into things. So it's cool that they went through and did all that, because they definitely could have gotten lazy. That Holiday Inn soap. I don't know if that's Holiday Inn soap. I don't know any other soaps that start with an H, so that's what I'm assuming it is. Alright. So now we're done with Chen, which means that we now have our final 4 racers here. Alright. Poor Walter, man. He's just trying to play and have fun. Alright. It's the last of our plant races. Holiday Inn, Toppies. Got a lot of people contributing here. I don't know who makes that fan, but they're a fan of us too. Alright. Got some 6 leaks in this hose. 5, 6. Come on now. Now, I live somewhere in the middle of nowhere, so I'm on a well. And if I had half a leak in a hose, like it's just dripping, the water pressure noticeably goes down. This person obviously lives somewhere where there's amazing water pressure, that their sprinklers are shooting 6 times up, like that, and it's like no big deal. Yeah. We're just able to blast water out of these little broken pieces of pipe. Must be nice. What a time. Is there anything more American than spending clean water to water plants? Not even there. More first world. Oof, that fan was not a fan of us that time. Guess I shouldn't have said that. Alright, watch out for the water. 3, 4, 5, 6. Cut back to the right. Dodge these turns here. There's actually a second fan in that section of the track on the NES version, which was not shown on videogamemaps.com, and first time I got this far, I got blown away. Spider, still stoic. Just smirking at that. Alright, 2 more tracks. Here's pool table number 3 and 4 here. You're gonna love the way they connect together. Did they put a ruler? Did they put a bunch of cards? No, there's just an imaginary pipe that takes you from one hole to the next. That makes sense. Alright. We'll cut through all them. You can see that they're fighting about something. No, I want to be in third. Alright, cool, dude. You got it. Watch out for another 9-ball. Multiple 9-balls in the same pool table. Then we got a little bit of time up here on the rail. Not much. We'll just go over here, past that hole, and then... Ah, too fast. Alright. Amazing. Not only did they get 2 pool tables, they got some sort of, like, teleportation device between the 2 holes. And then they chalked them up again. Not even one of them. They're not like, oh, we're gonna get one of these pool tables because you dumb kids keep putting chalk all over it. Nah, they got both pool tables and they chalked up both of them. Unbelievable. You could tell just the red felt, they were angry doing it. They were like, no, we're getting them red. That'll be like a danger, don't mess this one up, kid. Ah, you're stuck. I think that's Walter, too. Welcome to the championship, Walter. Have fun getting stuck in this card. Thanks for watching us play 21 races without you. Now that you're here. Alright, let's weave through these. Cut this one kind of close. Oh, too close. Walter's got his own category. He's gonna be fine. He's still there? Okay, no. So he made it out. See, he's good. He's gonna finish 4th, but whatever. He's gonna finish 4th anyway. Alright. We got tanks, and then we got our championship race on the school desktop again. And that'll be it. Alright, so you only have to finish 1st or 2nd to qualify for all these races. Oh, we gotta watch out for these Legos here real quick. Let's see if we can make it before we get shot. Ooh, we made it. Alright, cool. That can be, let's just say that can be a real endeavor. Where another AI car just kind of like spawns right behind you because you shot them. So they shoot you. And then you spawn behind them and you're trying to get through, so you shoot them. And they spawn right behind you and they shoot you. And it just goes on and on forever. So we really try to get off that line quick. And get through there before they can really retaliate. But yeah, so you only have to finish 1st or 2nd on all the first 24 races to qualify. And finishing 3rd or 4th means you need to repeat the race. And you lose one of your lives. And obviously, you guys have seen us win every race so far. We actually haven't had to win any of the races. We could have finished 2nd every time, technically, and it would have been fine. Now, granted, as soon as you win your 3rd race, you get one of those bonus stages. So, the math says that if you go through every single race in 2nd place, you're better off just of doing the 3 bonus stages anyway. So that's what we do it. We still try to win all the time and save as much time as we can that way. Finishing 2nd wouldn't have any kind of actual time save over the course of the entire run. However, on the very last race, race 25, it doesn't have a cool nickname or pun or anything like that like all these other tracks have had. It's literally just called win this race to be champion. So that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to win the whole race. Luckily, we're playing against the slowest competition we've got. So we're hoping that the desktop track is friendly to us and we don't have too many problems with the hazards. And we can get out of there with a win. So, see where that comes to us on the next track here. But we're finishing up tanks. And we got to the Legos there without lapping anybody. See if that stays just as favorable to us as we go to the chessboard again. Lots of ace of diamonds in this kid's deck of cards. Also, he has all of the same army men. Do kids still play with army men? Those were really popular when I was a kid. I don't know if that's still a thing. Same with marbles, but I don't think I've seen anyone play. I don't even think kids played with marbles when I was a kid. That was just kind of a toy that was implied was a toy, but I didn't actually see anyone playing with those. I had some, but I didn't even do anything with them. They certainly weren't all over my bedroom floor. Alright, here's our last race. Time will happen when we cross the finish line on lap 3 if we're in the lead. If we're not in the lead, it won't happen. We'll cut across there. We got a narrow ruler up here to avoid. Alright. Oof. Alright. Almost bad. This part can be a little bit dangerous here, so we'll slow down on this turn. And then we have this jump here, which is really, really mean. Because you just fall off the edge of the table if you go over at full speed. So you really just have to scale it down. And take your time to get through there correctly. The bots in this game are actually, or the AI or whatever, the CPU guys are much smarter than the ones in the NES one. In the NES version, the bots just drive right off the track there. So you kind of get a little bit of leeway on being able to win this race. Because you can just basically bank on them driving off the track. Now, they only drive off the track if they're on your screen. Because, as I said before, the Genesis version does a really good job of, like, calculating that for you. But the Genesis bots are also smart enough not to drive off, so 6 and 1, half dozen of the other. Alright, stay safe here. Get ready for the narrow ruler. And we gotta watch out for the danger jump. Safe. Oof. That ink can be risky. Cut across the binder. Alright, one more lap of this. So far, so good. We've had a pretty successful race so far here. As I say, as I almost fly off the entire table. Almost. Commentator cursed myself. Alright. One more danger jump. Alright, tough stuff is done. Let's just bring it home. Ooh! Walter's trying to spoil the party, getting the final photo shoot. Alright. Time will be when I cross the finish line up here in just a sec. And... time. That's not so bad. What do we end up with there? 51 and change. Is all the math in the binder done correctly? I don't know. I haven't actually checked that. That's going to be a... next stream I do, I'm definitely going to check that out. I'm going to try and proofread them there. 51:17 is pretty good. World record on this is 50 minutes and 42 seconds, so we were within 45 seconds of that, so that's pretty solid. 35 seconds of that, even. So, pretty good run of that. That's Micro Machines for the Sega Genesis. If you thought the game was cool, please give it a shot. Like, it doesn't have a big following, but I think it definitely deserves one more than some of the games that do have big followings. So, I appreciate you guys watching this. This is a great foundation. Looks like we're at $2,500. It's just insane. That's a huge number to help JDRF. So, thanks, Rezi, for putting this on. And, hope you guys liked it. And check me out on MixMastaPJ if you want to.